The story I'm about to tell happened in the winter of 1841, when I, Sam Houston, was still trying to establish Texas as an independent nation. I rarely talk about this event, not because it is not true, but because even now, decades later, I question what I really experienced in those 72 hours. I was returning from a diplomatic trip to the Rocky Mountains, where I had met with Cherokee leaders to discuss possible alliances. Winter arrived earlier that year, and I found myself traveling alone through a mountainous passage when a terrible blizzard collapsed over the region. Visibility fell to almost nothing. The sharp wind seemed to tear my skin even through the thick layers of buffalo skin that I wore. My horse, a sturdy Mustang that had accompanied me on countless journeys, was starting to mantle, its hooves injured by the ice-covered Rocky. That's when I spotted the lights. At first I thought it was a hallucination caused by the extreme cold, a warning that hypothermia was settling. But as I approached me, the lights took shape, bright windows of a large wood and stone building, 3 floors high, located on a shot protected from the wind. The Blackwood Hotel, the snow-covered sign that swung over the entrance. It seemed like a miracle to find such an isolated establishment in the mountains, but I didn't question my luck. I tied my exhausted horse to the adjacent stable, where I found fresh hay and water that, strangely, was not frozen despite the sharp cold. A bell tingled when I opened the front door. The entrance lobby was impressive polished wood, a large chandelier, and a huge fireplace where a vigorous fire burned. The contrast with the storm out there could not be greater. Behind an ornate oak counter, an elderly man with very erect back and formal costumes watched me with a polite smile. "Welcome to the Blackwood Hotel, sir," he said, his voice surprisingly deep. "I'm Edmund, the manager. You arrived on a very stormy night." I explained my situation and introduced myself. Listening to my name, Edmund raised his eyebrows slightly. "Sam Houston? The Sam Houston? It is an honor to receive him, Lord. We have few guests of such great distinction." He turned the record book and offered me a pity. "If you can sign here, please." While signing, I realized something strange in the book of records. There were recent signatures, but the dates were wrong. An era of 1802, another of 1857, 16 years in the future. I attribute the error to fatigue and did not comment. "I will accompany you personally to your room, Mr. Houston," said Edmund. "It's 4th 237 on the 2nd floor. One of our best rooms." As we climbed the big staircase, I noticed that the hotel looked bigger inside what it appeared on the outside. The corridors extended at distances that seemed impossible, with identical doors aligned on both sides. The lighting came from gas lamps that emitted an unusual bluish shine. "How many rooms do this hotel have?" I asked casually. "It depends," said Edmund enigmatically, without elaborating. My room was spacious and luxurious, with a canopy bed, another burning fireplace, and a panoramic window that, at that time, showed only the white blade of the blizzard. Edmund explained that dinner would be served in the main hall in 1 hour, made a formal bow and left, closing the door gently behind it. As soon as I was alone, I explored the room more detail. In the desk, I found a toned paper from the hotel with a printed date, 1878. Again, I thought it was a typographic error. In the dining room, I found about a dozen other guests. They all wore clothes of different eras, some in costumes that looked like the beginning of the century, some in styles that I did not recognize and that today I realize being of the future. But that night I just registered strangeness without completely processing its meaning. I sat next to a middle-aged man with a gray beard and round glasses. He introduced himself as Dr. Thomas Wheeler, geologist. "Fascinating, isn't it?" he said, indicating the hall with a wide gesture. "I'm already here. Well, I think I lost the bill. The days mix after a while. Are you trapped by snowfall too?" I asked. Wheeler released a short and humorous laugh. "Let's just say that the storm is the slightest of my concerns." During dinner, a strangely perfect meal, with each dish exactly as I would have preferred, I talked to other guests. There was a young girl named Elizabeth who spoke of cars and phones as if they were ordinary objects. A man named Richardson claimed to be traveling from Boston in 1793. An elderly lady in Victorian costumes just smiled and repeatedly said, "I just wanted to see my grandson one last time." As night was advancing, I began to realize that something was deeply wrong at the Blackwood Hotel. The conversations were fragmented, as if everyone was talking through different decades. The servants appeared and disappeared with impossible speed, sometimes seeming to be in two places at the same time. I returned to my restless room, attributing the strangeness to the tiredness of the trip. I fell asleep quickly, packed with the distant sound of the brilliance. I woke up in the middle of the night with a sense of disorientation. The room's arrangement had subtly changed, the furniture was in slightly different positions, the curtains were of another color. The bathroom door, which was once on the right of the bed, was now on the left. Disturbed, I decided to explore the hotel. I lit a lamp and left to the hall. That's when the true nature of the Blackwood Hotel began to reveal itself to me, Sam Houston, a man who has always been proud of his logical reasoning. The corridor, which the night before was perhaps 30 meters long, now extended apparently to infinity. The doors of the bedrooms, all identical, continued to seem to be miles. I walked for 10 minutes straight without reaching the end or the staircase. I decided to enter one of the rooms. I crashed slightly at port number 241 and, not receiving an answer, turned the doorknob. Inside, I found not a hotel room, but a battlefield of the Texas Independence War. The room opened to the plain of San Jacinto, where I had led troops against the Mexican army years earlier. He could smell gunpowder, hear the distant screams. I backed down and closed the door. The next room, 242, was open to a futuristic city with high buildings such as mountains and carriages that flew without horses. Fourth 243 contained only an infinite black abyss, with distant stars shining in the depths. I ran back to my own room, my heart hammering my chest. When I finally found 237, it was exactly as I had left initially, without the changes I had noticed when I wake up. I locked the door and waited anxiously for dawn. The next morning I went down to the coffee and found Dr. Wheeler again. It looked more downcast, with deep dark circles. The Lord also saw, wasn't it? He asked when I sat down. The doors. The impossible corridors. What is this place? I required to know, keeping my voice low. The Blackwood Hotel exists in a crossing, say, explained Wheeler. A point where different times and places are. Some of us theorize that it was deliberately built in this place by its founder, Ezekiel Blackwood, a man who, according to some ancient texts, practiced obscure arts. How do we leave here? I asked. This is the question we all seek to answer, said Wheeler with a sad smile. I've been here for 7 years for my calculation. Richardson, that gentleman who met yesterday? He has been here since 1793. Throughout the day, I talked to other guests and discovered similar stories. All had arrived during storms, seeking shelter. All had signed the book of records. And none had managed to leave. The hotel doesn't let anyone go until it collected what it wants, said Elizabeth, the young woman of the future. They say Blackwood has made a pact with something beyond human understanding. The hotel feeds on something in us, memories, perhaps, or potential not realized. I refused to accept such a destination. I, Sam Houston, had faced armies, survived to war injuries, built a nation out of nowhere. It would not be imprisoned by a hotel, as supernatural as it was. I spent the day exploring methodically. I found that some doors brought safe places, serene landscapes, peaceful cities at different times. Others revealed indescribable horrors or absolute empty. The corridors changed constantly, and stairs appeared and disappeared. It was as if the hotel itself was alive, reorganizing continually. On the second night I found Edmund, the manager, stopped alone in the empty lobby. His posture was the same, but in the weak light of the fireplace, I noticed that his skin had a translucent quality, as if it were not totally substantial. The Lord is not human, is it? I asked directly. Edmund smiled, his strangely sharp teeth in the dimness. Not the way you understand humanity, Mr. Houston. I'm more, a guardian. One aspect of the hotel, if you prefer. What does the hotel want from us? Experiences. Memories. Stories. Edmund made a comprehensive gesture. Hotel Blackwood exists to collect fragments of all lives that pass it. Some people find what they look for and depart. Others become part of the permanent collection. How can I leave? The hotel opens its doors to those who offer something of value equal to what they received during their stay. Edmund studied me with eyes that suddenly looked much older than his body. The Lord received shelter during a storm that would certainly have killed him. What does he offer in return, Sam Houston? I reflected at length about this question. What did I have could satisfy a supernatural entity? No material possessions, certainly. It was the third night that I understood. The Blackwood Hotel fed on stories, experiences. As a statesman and military leader, I had accumulated more than most men. I went down to the lobby at midnight and found Edmund waiting, as if I knew I would come. Next to the fireplace was now an ornate chair like a throne. I have an offer, I announced. A night of stories. True reports of the battles I fought, the nations I helped form, the secrets I carry with me. Edmund tilted his head thoughtfully. Continue. And as a guarantee that my stories are valuable, I offer this. I took a small gold medallion out of my pocket since the Battle of San Jacinto, a talisman that believed he had protected me on countless occasions. Throughout that night, sitting in the chair in front of the fireplace, I told stories. I talked about the Battle of San Jacinto, the formation of the Republic of Texas, my years living with the Cherokee. I revealed political secrets, personal confessions, hopes and nightmares. As he spoke, other guests gathered to hear. Wheeler, Richardson, Elizabeth. Everyone clustered in the lobby, some crying silently, some nodding with understanding. Edmund remained immovable, absorbing each word as if they were drops of water on a dry soil. When the first ray of sun penetrated through the windows, I concluded my last story. A deep silence fell over the lobby. Your stories are satisfactory, finally said Edmund. Especially considering who you are and who will become. The hotel accepts your offer. He got up and walked to the front door, opening it with a formal gesture. Outside, instead of the furious blizzard, I saw a clear morning of spring. My horse, recovered and rested, was waiting to tie to a nearby post. The Lord is free to leave, Sam Houston, said Edmund. But know that a part of the Lord will always remain here in the stories you shared. By crossing the threshold, I turned to one last look. The other guests observed with expressions that mixed envy and resignation. Except Wheeler, who smiled with genuine kindness. Tell our story too, Mr. Houston, he said. So, perhaps, a part of us can escape too. I promised I would do so, although I knew that few would believe. I set my horse and rode the mountainous trail. When I looked back after a few hundred meters, the Blackwood Hotel had completely disappeared, as if it had never existed. In the following years, I researched obsessively on the hotel and its founder. I discovered only fragments of mentions to a mystic named Ezekiel Blackwood who had studied forbidden arts in the early 18th century, rumors of a mountain hotel that appeared only for lost travelers during storms. And sometimes, on particularly severe storm nights, dreams of infinite corridors and doors that lead to impossible places. And somewhere in the depths of those corridors, I know that my stories are still told, echoing by eternity in the halls of the Blackwood Hotel. Before we end this account, if you are visiting our channel for the first time, be sure to subscribe and activate the bell to receive notifications about our upcoming scary stories. Your support means a lot to us, so please share these stories with your friends and family. Thanks.